Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Awake in the World. Today we're going to be talking about a day in the life worth living. Now, to be honest, I only have about half an hour for this one, so we're not going to be here an incredibly long time today. And it's quite funny, I was commenting to Kelly just yesterday how, when I started out, I would talk for 10, 15 minutes, and that would be the end of it, and now it seems that an hour can go by. I haven't necessarily decided that that's a good thing or not. So today we're going to be talking about what I mean by a day in the life worth living. And I can see comments off to the side. Forgive me if I don't get to them right away, but I will take a look at them. Hi, Jane. How are you? Nice to see that you're here today. Yeah. So it's a busy day. Kelly has piano going on. We were out in the backyard and in the front working on the landscaping today, and many things on the go. But this was worth putting in. And what it really comes down to, what we're really talking about, is the process of life itself and how we separate ourselves from that process all the time. And I love hearing from each and every one of you. I really do. Please never ever do not think that I am always here for you, because I always am. Oh, and it looks like Jennifer's here too. Hi, Jennifer. Nice to see you. I should say, it's nice to see your icons. Sooner or later, I hope to be able to touch base with everyone face to face. Why? So I can see the person that I feel on the other side, right? Just have a look at you sometimes is kind of nice. I'm at a disadvantage. I'm the one doing the videos, so unless I was to wear a mask, which I avoid at all costs, and we all know about masks in life. So let's get right down to some fun, okay? So the first thing we're going to talk about, obviously, is well, what happens when we come into this world? We are born. We call it birth. And, I'm not sure if that's really the proper word from it. It depends, or for it. It depends which side of the coin is your perspective. In the spiritual realm, we would think of it as going asleep. Right? Taking a long dirt nap. Kind of sounds like being dead instead of being alive. It's all about perspective. We are born here, and when we are initially born here, we give out that cry of fear and anguish at the weight of physicality. The sheer, coarse, heavy vibration of material, of physical matter. And we cry out when we come in. One way or another, in some way, we react. Often, babies are kind of shaking and trembling, and if you kind of touch them, they react quite quickly to it. It's like, whoa, this is all new. This is the way we come into the world. We do not come in a place of sin or a place of not uncompleteness, and we do not come into the wrong situation. We come into a situation that we have chosen, with an honest desire and an honest journey in mind. And we all are fulfilling those. And the beautiful thing is you cannot fail. There is no such thing as leaving something incomplete. And, Kelly and I were talking about it earlier. I had found a Seth book for her called Epilogue, and she was really enjoying it. And she was speaking to me about some of the things that she was reading. And she said, you could have written a lot of this. And I said, well, truth is truth. It may be spoken differently, but if you look beyond the words, we're talking about the same thing. And Debbie's here. Hi, Debbie. Nice to see you too. So I am curious, if you guys don't mind, just comment where you're at, country-wise, city-wise, just so I have an idea how far the net spreads when we cast our nets out. So the moment we're born, we are not asleep yet. We are still awake. That sleeping period kind of settles in the first couple years of our lives. And you'll notice it when babies switch from interior attention, being the majority of things, to beginning to react more exteriorly. And you know, kids around 2 years old or so, they start to reach out into the world. They're beginning to go into the dream. They're beginning to fall asleep. And that sleep doesn't happen overnight, doesn't happen really fast. It takes years. And we normally say that at a maximum by the age of about, well, it used to be 15, but honestly these days, you know, you're going to have to knock it back to about 13. By the time a child hits about 13, that sense of I is fully intact, and they are fully asleep in the dream. We are fully asleep in the dream. And there's a really good reason for it, you know, and I keep going back to the amusement park or to a grand adventure. Hey, Cindy's here, and look, it's only 5 minutes after. We were going back and forth with Cindy last time about being late. And it wasn't that she was late. It was just hard to find the video stream. Well, we love having you all here. We really do. As I said, Kelly's busy teaching piano. That is her passion and what she does. And Cindy, okay, I'll stop. I'll behave. So the reason we fall asleep is, you know, when you go on an adventure, and I think the one I used was this murder mystery that I did. It was a weekend in a castle. It was over in Europe, and it was a blast. But you still knew that you were taking part in a planned event. You were still consciously aware of that. When we come into this world, we knock ourselves out completely. Why? Because we want to be asleep. We don't want to know that it's not for real. Because then we're going to be totally real. Because we don't know it's real. So we're going to behave as if that murder mystery that someone was out to kill everybody. We're going to believe everything about this physical realm at first. We're going to get pulled into all of it. Why? Because that forms the basis for our journey. It's not a journey we can start awake, although some people do. And the reason why they do is they have come with very specific purposes involving others. They've come to grow up beside another. They have agreed prior to coming here to serve another soul. Because, of course, in serving another, we serve ourselves. This is a magnificent gift of the start of our day in a life that is worth living. And each and every one of you must know life is worth living. No matter how desperate, no matter how sad, no matter how depressed. And I've been there to the point of suicide, okay? So I know where people come from on this. I live with a fair degree of physical pain, and I can still be a happy guy. We have this wonderful adventure. We forget who we are. We forget our own power. We forget all the knowledge and wisdom of the universe that we possess. It is still intact beside us, inside our being, within our being. Why? As I said, we do it so we can become fully involved, fully present, and wholly absorbed in this physical illusion. And we can call it physical reality because it'll feel real enough if you step out in front of a bus. It really will. Only for a second or two. And then you're going to be on the other side going, what just happened? That ego we create, of course, is a memory bank. It comes into being naturally. It comes into being as a product of all the experiences that we're accumulating from the minute we come into the world. And yes, the really tiny child experiences and baby experiences, for the most part, fade deep into the subconscious mind. But they're still there. They're still remembered. They're still held energetically by this being. You know, I've equated the human form to a hard drive. That's really what we are. We are a vibrational structure that has the ability to encode within our genetic material and at a deeper level within the vibratory states that represents the entirety of our journey in perfect detail, in full 3-dimensional 5-channel surround sound. You know, 6K color, guaranteed. Dolby Digital all the way. And Veronica, that's right, Veronica's in Spain. Awesome. Good to see you, Veronica. So, this memory bank that we are, okay, and our false sense that, you know, the memory bank develops the sense of I. I am Garhen. I wasn't always Garhen. You know, I've had my name changed about 26 times in my life due to what I did for a living. But, you know, for sake of argument, I am Garhen. But am I Garhen? Of course not. But that memory bank gathers so much data, so much experience, that it becomes self-aware. Just like our worries with artificial intelligence. So, what happens next? Well, after our ego is formed, okay, and we would call those the formative years, the early, and again, we're speaking from a consciousness point of view, not necessarily a social psychology or child psychology or social-based point of view. Okay, we're looking a little outside of the norm, and we're taking a look at the physical journey in terms of consciousness and the why of it, and the fun of it, and the joy of it. In those formative years, our base personality is set, and that personality we wanted to manifest for the journey. And that personality will be perfect in every way. And the reason it is so is not that there is not free will, because there is. But the whole of creation, the whole web of creation is infinitely flexible. It is dancing this vibrational crystalline dance of such magnificence that to look upon it for just a moment would leave you, your very being, rife of every one of your senses. Total awe would be all that would possess you. And every action we take, every thought we think, every word we speak out is creative. And in that, the universe self-adjusts itself. Oh, is Richard here too? I hope so. I can't see Richard on the screen for some reason, but I see Cindy said hi, Richard. Or does Cindy have an invisible ghost friend? So these formative years, they form that base personality, that beginning place for our journey. And you know, in my case, when I look back, and this is what you can do now, is you can look back, and instead of allowing what you feel about what happened to come into play anymore, you can really look at it and understand, okay, I chose that. I chose my parents. I chose this basic setup. Why? What's the pattern? What is the recurring theme throughout my existence? This is what begins to come out. And that's really is. You're at a theme park and your life has a theme. It has a direction. It has meaning. It has value. And it will never not have value or meaning. That can never be taken from you, and you cannot mess it up. I need this to be so clear with people. You know, as I said, I love talking to all of you, and I've had so many people contacting me, and at the core of it, they live in fear of living. They live in fear of letting go of their own self-doubts and their own self-deprecation and what they allow others to put on them, and the belief that they may lose everything. I've lost everything over and over again. Sometimes intentionally, sometimes not intentionally. I've been on the street. Life is grand. There's things to be taught. There's things to be learned. There's wisdom and experience to be had at every strata and every level of everything that we do. And we have the power to choose. We have the power to change. And the change all starts right here with ourselves, with the decision that we want to live no matter what. No matter how long. No matter how well as perceived by our society. Sometime, if we're fortunate, it all depends on the plan, okay? Your first wake-up call comes pretty early in life. For me, it was the reality of war, before I was 18 years old. And I look at 18-year-olds today, and I joined at 16 and a half. I was at basic training for 6 months, and I graduated basic training at 17 and then went to battle and sniper school for an additional year. So by the time I was 18, I was already out in the field, already receiving my first wake-up call as I watched a friend of mine, a rather new-made friend, be killed. Something there began to stir, and we might not catch that stirring. We may not. If you look back in your life, if you look deeply, you'll see that first moment within you where something resonated differently all of a sudden, and there was it was like being disturbed in your sleep by a mosquito. You didn't really come right awake, but your consciousness came up enough to take a swat at it. And this is what happens in our life. And eventually, the first wake-up call becomes that baseball bat I talk about. If you're like me. And I was stubborn, I admit it, okay? So yeah, I needed the baseball bat. Not just one of them, but quite a few of them. I'm lucky that I was hit in the head enough times that my whole skull balanced out by the time it was done. And in this first wake-up call, and again, the age that this occurs in is not the critical factor. This is the journey. This is the day in the life worth living. And your life is only a day. Not even, but we're going to call it a day because it fits. The sunrise, our birth, and the sunset, our death. Or the sun rise and our sleeping begins. And the end of the light and the end of the day, and we awaken for the first time. This is the beauty of our existence. That wake-up call, whenever it occurs to us, we become the seeker. That wake-up call has brought pressure, has brought stress, has brought pain, has brought suffering. It has brought something that we don't communicate with, something that at first we push up against, that we lend energy to, and it stays there. We wonder why it doesn't go away. And we begin to seek a way out of the pain. We begin to seek a way out of what we perceive. And it is so important that we understand this, that all of our life, all of our lives is about thought and perception. What you think about it and the way that you choose to feel about what you think. Your thoughts are creating your reality, and you are not limited to any one thought about any one thing. You are not limited once you've made up your mind about something. You can change your mind. You literally can change your mind on all levels, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, consciously. That mind is pliable like silly putty. And for years and years and years, you've let it run on its own. Do its own thing. And it's like a dog that's used to being outside all the time. Catching it out of that field is going to be tough to start with. But it can be done. And I have all the faith in the world that you can begin to see the life you choose in a better and more open and more responsive way. To not look upon things that occur and think, why is this happening to me? But instead say, what is the gift that is here for me? Where's the message? Hey, Richard, there you are. Awesome. Cindy said, hi, Richard, a while back, and I didn't see you there. Well, it's nice to meet all your icons, all of you. So we become that seeker. And, some of us get stuck in seeking for a long period of time. We develop a seeker mentality and we jump. I met a woman like this a number of years ago. Beautiful young woman. She had a convertible and a bikini in the summertime. And it was a couple years before I met Kelly. And I was reading on the beach and she pulled the car up and she got out in her bikini and she came and she sat down right beside me. And I kind of like, oh, hi. And she had seen the book prior that I had been reading and noticed I was quite absorbed in it and wanted to sit and talk about the book. And we did. We had a great conversation. And then we went off for lunch and talked about a number of other books and talked about where she was on her spiritual path and got her to get some clothes on as the evening wore on. And what occurred to me is that she had never stuck with any one practice long enough to actually gain any benefit from it. So as long as the practice was new and she was meeting new people and having new experiences, the practice was fun. But as soon as it came down to the nitty-gritty, the bitter part at the beginning, she would go hopping off looking for another practice. And this is that egoic seeker, the seeker that just keeps seeking. The reason we start to seek is because of that pain. It's because of that suffering that's going on. It's because of the thing that we view as not right in our existence, and we desire change in ourselves. And that is the beginning. And initially, we will often look outside. It takes real effort every day, every moment of every day, to keep turning your vision back around, to understand that nothing that you can perceive external to you has anything at all in reality until you choose to process it. It just is. It's all of what goes on in this head, all of your thoughts about it, all of the way you feel about those thoughts, all the things you've been programmed about it. This was brought up when talking about first contact, for example, okay? If you were to be outside and see a vast alien ship slowly sink down to near the surface, and then a number of, 12-foot tall, well-built, strangely colored aliens with additional legs and features, there's going to be two groups of people, in essence. There's going to be those that are deathly afraid almost by default. Their own thoughts and their own programming and what's been put into them will cause them to fear this unknown. As we all do in some way. We fear the unknown. And there'll be another group who'll be overjoyed. Personally, I'm looking for a lift back to my own home planet. So I'll be out there hitchhiking. But when we seek in earnest, the universe steps towards us. It really does. So sometime in that seeking, and again, time is not the object here, the light trickles in. And the reason I say the light trickles in is I've heard a lot of people use this. And indeed, you see... I'm trying to explain this properly. The light isn't trickling in. The light's actually trickling out. And it bounces off the mirror of someone else enough that it hits your eyes. It bounces off the rest of creation hard enough and impacts upon you, your own light. And in that minute, you experience a true joy of being, a reasonless joy. A joy that has no connection to anything that's occurred. It's just there. It's a state of being. And if you look at it, if you allow it, it will fill you and leave you vibrating and energized and feeling powerful. The end times. This is our third part of our journey. This is the part of the journey where, you know, for a lot of people it does happen in old age, but it doesn't really matter when it happens. Some people can go through all these processes inside of one day of being alive. You know, it's not the time we're alive. It's not the time we're here that matters. Time is immaterial. You got to trust me on this, okay? We are eternal beings. There is no time, and yet there is all the time you need. Better to live one day well than to live in fear for 1,000 years. Better to express your being creatively, wholly, lovingly, fully, powerfully, for only a short period of time and then die, than to spend a whole life wishing that you had taken that one step. And I think the reason why we're doing this again today is it really comes back to fear. You know, I keep seeing people who will not take the leap. Don't look down. Look up and jump. That's my wish for you. Be free. Fly. Spread your wings. Give in to life. Allow it to be lived through you as it is, whether you're aware of it or not. In the end times, we begin to disidentify with that sense of self, that false sense of self that has served us so well and will continue to serve us until the day we do disincorporate, croak, die. You begin to disidentify with it. You begin to be of this world and in this world, but yet no longer of this world. You have recognized and seen the connection. You have experienced what it means to feel and be in harmony with your higher being. And you know you have nothing to fear, and you never have. And this is the time where now, instead of being asleep, we're waking from the dream. We're still a little dozy, but our eyes are opening to reality, and we're seeing right through it. And this is a time when our gift becomes even more powerful, when our ability to express becomes even more powerful. You know, if it happens to you as you're growing old, do not think that growing old is a problem. It's a gift, a beautiful gift. When we disidentify with that sense of self, we find it so much easier to take in the entire world, to take in the entire being, to realize we are all one. We spend more time in a state of being instead of a human doing. We spend more time being human beings. We tend to serve others more because we know that we see ourselves in another. And then the guide out of the labyrinth. The other word, of course, for this could be death. You know, and so many people have been sold this dark specter carrying a scythe, somberly placing his finger upon you, and you drop dead, and he takes your soul to the other side. You know, in the couple times I've died, I can tell you that death is not a dark hooded figure with a scythe. Death is a glowing, vibrational, interdimensional tunnel that invites you to come home. And when you get to the other side, when you first leave the other side of that tunnel, you're going to come into this beautiful space. And when you come into this space, you're going to experience your life yet again in all vivid detail, right down to the way you thought about things and the way you felt about them and your emotional states. You're going to experience that, and you're going to experience that in what's going to appear to be a heartbeat. And you're going to understand at a level you are not capable of right now that everything served you, that you came here and completed a magnificent journey, a joyous journey. These bodies aren't meant to be pampered and babied and kept pristine through our whole existence. They're meant to be used, to be exercised, to express. They're part of that package we have. That's really all about I have time to talk about today. That didn't make much sense. The point being here that I want to convey to everyone, okay, is we all go through these stages, and when you can look upon them from the state of consciousness that you are and not the physicality of such things, but really pay attention to that spiritual realm of what's happening there, you can see every step of your journey as being joyful. You can see every so-called obstacle as being a gift. For example, you know, I have a degenerative spine, and my back is in constant pain. And when I do work underneath the deck all day, for example, with a shovel, I'm almost to the point where I can lock into place and not move. I can get stuck. My entire back thrums with the pain. And you know what? I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful. Why? Because that pain drove me into yoga. That pain drove me to meditate more. That pain drove me to the place I am today. And I wouldn't give it up, even right now. I would not give it up. Because it keeps me moving. A rolling stone gathers no moss. The place that hurts the most is when I stop. And then everywhere hurts. But as long as I don't stop, as long as I'm moving, as long as I'm expressing, as long as I'm living, I'll take this with gratitude. Hopefully this becomes a new way of looking at your day. Tomorrow morning when you wake up to the day in your life worth living. And live it fully. Do it for yourself. We have more good events coming up to this week, Tuesday and Thursday as well. We're going to do some live videos on Facebook as well as YouTube. And we hope to see you all there. And looking forward to more questions. And of course, as always, if you need to talk personally, you know how to get a hold of me. Much love. Namaste. Have a wonderful, wonderful Monday. Take care.